was not being on the recording, but we learned all of Shas. You didn't miss much, just all of Shas. And tomorrow we'll sing the song together. Here's a page for Ruvain, came in a little bit late. We were learning from this text and going through and showing you how the structure of Shas is and where is Masechet Nida and how it's really, and now I'm getting to my main point of what I wanted to share with you about relationships, and that's why I'm glad that now we have finally the camera back on, is that it's a part of relationships, the sexual relationship, by all means. They're a significant part. Of course, that's why God made men and women in order to procreate, and relations is part of that. However, that's not really what marriage is all about, right? Because that's not in what was, I think, we were mentioning before. Where do you find really the discussion of marriage? It's not in the laws of purity and impurity. Where do you find it? Michael, you misspoke, and that's why I'm laughing. Because you said, where do you find the law? I asked, where do you find the laws of marriage? And you said in Gitin. Gitin is divorce. It's a little ironic, but it's close. What's right after Gitin? Kiddushin. Kiddushin, of course, is about marriage and how to affect marriage. And then there's more laws in all of Seder Nashim, essentially.
Why is Gitin before Kiddushin? It's like, listen. This is, before I tell you what you're about to get into, let me just let you know how to get out of it.
That's it. Always preface the antidote to the poison, as they say. No, chas v'chalila. But that's a joke that they always say. The Gittin comes before Kiddushin, just in case you know how to get out of it. We're not Catholic marriages here, right? Gittin comes before Kiddushin. There is such a thing as a get, which is a divorce. But as you can see, all of Seder Nashim, Ktuvot, we talked about what is a Ktubah a few weeks ago. Ktubot is a prenup, essentially, that every couple has to sign.
But Nazir doesn't belong in Nashim.
Good question. What else is doing there? What else is in Nashim? So Ktubot we understand, Kiddushin we understand, even Gittin, the flip side of Kiddushin, we understand why it's there. But why is Nazir there? Why is Nazir there?
Because it's connected with the Sota woman,
Why?
Because Nazir is someone who tried to stay himself from sexual stuff.
First of all, what is Sota and why is it there?
Because Sota is exactly what
it's the
cheating woman.
That's right, the cheating woman or the suspected adulterous woman. So of course that's part of the marriage laws. The laws that have to do with the fidelity in marriage. So that's there. Nazir, Michal says beautifully, it's on the Midrash, that first of all in the Torah they're juxtaposed, these two laws, but also it makes sense that the Torah says if you see yourself leaning towards sexual impropriety, perhaps you should take upon yourself a fence. And a classic fence was to take upon yourself an oath of Nizirut. And Nazir is some kind of what do you call them in English? I don't know if there's an English word for it. It's just a Nazirite. There is such a thing.
Dedicated.
And what he does, he has a few laws which are more strict, sort of ascetic. He doesn't have any wine. What he does on Purim, I don't know. Don't do that before Purim, because you won't be able to drink wine. You have to drink whiskey. What can you do? Whiskey's allowed, by the way, for us. And it's not like the Muslims. All alcohol is forbidden. And Nazir is not allowed to cut his hair. Good. And he's not allowed to go into a cemetery as well. There's interesting laws of Nazir, but they're there because maybe the association with Sota, both from the Torah and from what brings you to be so ascetic, so staying away from pleasures of the flesh. And, well, if that's there, then that's why they put in Nidarim as well. Nazir is one particular type of neder. Also, I think in the past, it was quite common that the women would be taking oaths. And there's even laws in the Torah about if a woman takes an oath and she's a young child, the father can nullify the oath. And if a wife takes an oath, which has to do with the husband can nullify the oath. So that's why it's part of the relationships here between husband and wife. That's why it's in Seder Nashim. What about the first Masechet?
Yevamo. That's about when
What's it
someone
about?
marries a woman and he dies before they have children, the brother has to have children.
That's right. It's usually translated as levirate marriage. What a levirate marriage means, I don't know. But I do know what Yevamah means. And as Shua said, it's a special law in the Torah that usually you're not allowed to marry or have relations with your brother's wife, even after he dies. She's forbidden to you. Your sister-in-law. However, in some cases, the Torah says it's a mitzvah. Very ironic.
You know King George V Street?
I've heard of it.
The King George V, for whom that street is named of, was in such a situation. He had an older brother who passed away before they had kids. So he took his wife, married Queen of Tech.
Wow, amazing. Of course, they were not Jews, and
They were, but
so their marriages are not marriages, and
what I'm saying is it was not just.
but the concept, it's a concept. Sure. It appears in ancient times, biblical times. We find precedent for it even before the Jewish people received all these mitzvot, and Yehuda and Tamar, of course, was a unique case of levirate marriage, because what did they expect? Why did Tamar expect to get Yehuda's hand? She seduced him essentially, right? Because the brother of Onan didn't marry, he married her, but they both died, and then she was waiting for the third brother, and he wasn't coming, so forthcoming with that. Shelah was his name, and she wasn't getting Shelah, so she went and she essentially seduced Yehuda.
How does that work today?
Doesn't at all. We don't have the only levirate marriage which we have in halacha. First of all, we don't actually effect levirate marriages. We use the out clause. The Torah has an out clause. The Torah itself has a loophole. It's not a loophole. It's an alternative. The Torah says that if the woman says, "I don't want to marry the brother of my deceased husband. He's disgusting. I like my husband, but I didn't like him. I don't like him," or for whatever reason she doesn't want to. She doesn't have to. And he doesn't have to either. He says, "I like my wife. I don't like my wife's sister." With all due respect, so he doesn't have to. And the Torah provides for us a alternative plan B. Plan B is called?
Yibum.
Nope. Yibum is what we do, the levirate marriage itself. What's the plan B called?
Something.
I don't know what it's called, but you exchange the shoe.
She throws her shoe at them, right?
She takes off his shoe. He has to wear a shoe, and she has to take it off of him, and she spits on the floor in front of him, and there's a whole process which they go through, which is called Khalitza. Khalitza is a fancy Hebrew verb for taking off a shoe. Did you know that there's a fancy word for putting on jewelry? La'anod taba'at. There's a fancy Hebrew word for putting on shoes. What's that called? Lino'ol na'alayim. That's right. And for taking off your shoes, it's chalitzat na'alayim. So chalitza is the process of taking off the shoe. It's more like a sandal-like shoe. In any case, that is discussed in Masechet Yevamot as well. And Ketuvot, we already talked about the Ketubah, but all the relationships, the forbidden relationships between the various relatives are discussed in Seder Nashim. So there's lots of laws relating to all of this, of course, the divorce and the marriage, how it's affected in Seder Nashim. Also, there's the laws in Masechet Nida, which comes from which Seder? Masechet Nida comes from which Seder? Taharot. Okay? Questions? Comments? Don't think that you can get ready for marriage just by learning the laws of Taharat HaMishpacha, it's called. Another word for Nida. Many times instead of saying menstruation, it's kind of a strange topic to have. Put it on the class list. We have a shiur in Megillat Esther, and we have a shiur in Parshat Shavua, and then we have a shiur in menstruation. Just doesn't sound right. So usually what it's called is Taharat HaMishpacha, purity of the family purity. So family purity. You see it sometimes. That's a euphemism, essentially, for teaching you the laws of family purity. And there are lots of books on family purity, because the truth is, I said this before, many people who grew up religious, keep halacha, they know all of the brachot off by heart, and when it comes to the laws of family purity, all of a sudden they feel like they're about tshuva. They feel like they don't know anything.
They don't teach
They're
it,
ignorant.
and their parents-
Because you're not going to teach it to the children, obviously.
Kids,
Yeah.
You're going to teach it to teenagers.
That's
you know,
it.
And you know, you don't want to make anyone feel overly pressured that they should get married, so you're not going to teach it to necessarily to even to young adults.
Right.
And your parents aren't going to talk about it to you because it's personal between them.
Right. So it's taught right before marriage, usually in person, to person with a personal counselor. Anyways, there are books about that, but then people make the mistake and say, "Oh, I want to get ready for marriage. I should learn the books about marriage." What books about marriage are there? The books about family purity. It's a very small piece of the puzzle. It's a big. It's important. You have to keep those laws, but it's like, what did we learn about kashrut? You can learn all the laws of kashrut, but you won't know how to make a nice meal. Right? You can learn all the laws of Shabbat, but you won't really know how to, all the 39 categories of work. You won't know how to make challah. You won't know how to make kiddush. Right? You have to. So there's more. There's more about the preparing for marriage than learning Masechet Nida or family purity, and that we have to cull from many different places. Primarily in Seder Nashim, in Masechet Kiddushin, perhaps more so than in Masechet Nida. Okay, one more time, let's sing the song. Reuven wasn't here. Be nice to him, guys, because tomorrow we'll be singing the song. You ready? You ready? Follow along. From the top. Reuven's. You're on camera now, folks. Absolutely, repeat it over and over. You ready? Okay? Berachot peya. That's too high. It's too high. Let's go lower. Berachot peya demai kilayim shevit trumot maasrot Ma'aser she'inicha la'ola bikurim Shabbat eruvin pesachim shekalim Yom ha'asuka be'etza Rosh Hashanah ta'anit Megillah Moed kata'an cha'agiga Ay 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 Yevamot Ketuvot Nedarim Nazir Sota Gitin Kidushi Bava Kama Bava Metzia Bava Batra Sanhedrin Makot Shevuot Eiduyot Avodah Zara, Avot Horayot, Ay ay ay, Zvachim Menachot, Chulin Bechorot, Arachim Temura, Keritot, Meila Tamid Midot, Kinim, Kelim Aholot, Negaim Para, Tahorot, מקוואות, נידה, מכשירים, זבים, תבול יום, ידיים וקצין, איי איי איי, זרעים מועד, נשים נזיקים, קודשים, טהורות, סך כל מסכתות, 63, כולם ביחד, 6 סדרי משנה. Trivia question, last question for the end. Which Masechet has the same name as the Seder that it is in? Nope.
Why not?
Nope. Yafeh. Tavi got it.
What is it?
Masechet Taharot is in Seder Taharot. That's why it's confusing. But we're here to clear things up. Have a great day. Happy Purim. Hope to see you soon.